Chapter 11. Lila arrived at the Word Shop, the opened envelope tucked into her pocket. She had thought about it every day since her grandmother handed it to her. What could be inside? A message? A mystery? Something meant just for her? But each time she reached for it, something inside whispered, "Not yet." Until last weekend. When she opened the envelope, a delicate note fluttered into her hands, written in her grandmother's graceful script. Follow the moments that make you smile. Let them guide you. Tucked beside it were a few crisp bills, more than enough to buy herself a few indulgences, meals, or perhaps new books waiting to be discovered. And beneath that, a hand-drawn map of a neighborhood she had never explored. There was a tiny heart drawn on one block, with a note. Sit here a while and enjoy a croissant and a cappuccino. See what finds you. Excitement hummed through her as she traced the map's winding streets. She set off the next morning, following its quiet invitation, and she let the day unfold like a treasure hunt. It led her to a sun-drenched cafe with worn wooden tables and the scent of freshly baked pastries curling through the air, wrapping around her and inviting her in. As she settled into a corner with her cappuccino and her croissant, she overheard an elegant woman discussing poetry with the cafe owner, her voice like the turning of well-loved pages, carrying the weight of stories told 100 times and yet still fresh with wonder. Poetry, the woman mused, isn't about finding the perfect words. It's about finding the right ones, the ones that meet you where you are and whisper, "I've been waiting for you." The cafe owner nodded, setting down a steaming cup in front of her. Poetry finds people when they are ready for it, he mused, wiping his hands on a linen cloth. Just like music, or a good book, or the right conversation at the right time. It's all about resonance. The woman nodded in agreement. Tell me about a moment like that. One where something found you just when you needed it. The cafe owner chuckled, leaning against the counter. I have had more moments than I can count, but one stands out. Many years ago, I was traveling alone through Italy. I had no real plan, just a backpack and a journal, and one afternoon, I wandered into a tiny bookstore tucked behind an overgrown hedge. I almost walked past it, but something pulled me inside. As I browsed, an old man behind the counter struck up a conversation with me about coffee, of all things. We talked about the perfect espresso, about patience, about the beauty of creating something worthwhile. Before I left, he handed me a book, no charge, just a gift. When I opened it later, I found an inscription. The best things in life arrive when you are open to receiving them. That book changed how I saw everything. He smiled, his eyes warm. So now, when people come in, I wonder what they're open to receiving. A coffee, a conversation, maybe something they didn't even know they needed. That's the magic of serendipity, isn't it? And do you remember the first poem that whispered to you? The woman's eyes gleamed. Oh, I remember it well. But it wasn't just the words, it was the moment, the feeling of discovery. I was sitting by a window on a rainy afternoon, flipping through an old book in my grandmother's attic. And there it was, tucked between the pages, written in a careful script on a slip of yellowed paper. A poem about the wind, about how it carries whispers from places unseen. I read it again and again, feeling as though the poet had written it just for me. I don't remember the poet's name, only feeling that the wind had secrets, and if I listened closely enough, I might hear them. And that's when I knew. Words are more than just ink on a page. They find us, just as we find them, and they place us in a magical energy if we allow them. Lila's heart quickened. She liked to think of poetry that way, like a whisper meant just for her, like a magical energy. She pulled out her notebook and without hesitation wrote, "The wind has secrets, and today I am listening." The cafe owner replied, "You know, poetry and serendipity aren't so different. They both find you when you least expect them. They both show up in ordinary moments, transforming them into something extraordinary. And they both ask the same thing of you, to notice. Years ago, before I ever dreamed of owning this cafe, I was sitting at a train station in Spain, feeling completely lost, not just in direction, but in life. An old woman sat beside me, and we struck up a conversation. She told me something I never forgot. You don't need to chase the path, child. The path finds you when you are ready. I didn't understand it at the time, but when I came home, I stumbled upon this tiny cafe with a for sale sign in the window. The moment I stepped inside, I knew the path had found me. And now, every day, I see people walk through these doors, not realizing they were always meant to arrive here. Lila loved sitting in the sun, listening to the conversations around her, the warmth of the cafe, the scent of coffee and fresh pastries, the gentle hum of voices weaving stories. It felt like a world within a world. But soon she felt the pull to continue wandering, as if the day still had more to reveal. She thanked the owner, tucked the receipt into her notebook as a small keepsake, and stepped outside, letting the breeze decide her next turn. The breeze led her to a small, ivy-covered courtyard where an artist was painting in soft, sweeping strokes. The scene felt almost unreal, as though she had stepped into a dream. She watched, mesmerized, until he caught her eye and smiled. "Art finds those who are ready to see," he said, offering her a blank canvas and a brush. "Have you ever painted before?" Lila hesitated. "Not really." The artist winked. "Good, then you have no rules to break." Lila hesitated for only a moment before dipping her brush into a swirl of color. The bristles kissed the canvas, and suddenly there was no right or wrong, only movement, only feeling. The world around her softened into light and laughter, and for the first time in a long time, she created without expectation. As she painted, the artist smiled. "Do you see? Art isn't about making something perfect. It's about letting something inside you take form, letting what wants to be seen, be seen." Lila let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "So, it's like a conversation that wants to be heard?" The artist nodded. "Exactly. A conversation between you and the part of yourself that doesn't need words, but needs color, movement, and space to breathe. Sometimes what we cannot say, we must paint. What we cannot explain, we must feel." She stepped back, studying the strokes and colors that had appeared beneath her hands. There was something alive in them, something true. She thanked the artist, slipping her brush onto the table with quiet reverence. As she stepped away from the courtyard, she carried the moment with her, like a whisper in her chest, soft but certain. And finally, just as the afternoon faded into golden light, she arrived at a tiny vintage bookshop she had never seen, where an old book of poetry seemed to leap off the shelf and into her hands. When she opened it, she found a handwritten dedication on the first page, "For the one who is ready to listen." She used money from the envelope to buy the book, knowing it had been waiting just for her. And then, as she stepped outside, she collided, quite literally, with a gentleman carrying a satchel brimming with maps and letters. Apologizing, he chuckled and handed her one of the postcards that had slipped from his bag, a vintage postcard from Paris. She longed to experience Paris. She wandered her way home, allowing curiosity to tug at her steps. It led her to a hidden courtyard she had never noticed before, where a street musician played a melody that made her heart swell. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Lila felt like she was living in a poem. She thought of the book she had found at the vintage shop, the handwritten dedication that had felt like a message sent through time. She thought of the map her grandmother had drawn, guiding her not just to places but to moments. Maybe this was what poetry truly was. Not just words, but invitations. A crisp breeze stirred the ivy as Lila approached the shop. She smiled to herself as she pushed open the door, the familiar chime of the bell overhead greeting her like an old friend, warm and inviting. Her grandmother was already waiting at their table, a fresh pot of hibiscus tea steaming between them. She looked up with a twinkle in her eyes. Ah, my love, you have carried the envelope for 2 weeks, but I can tell you have opened it. Tell me, where has it led you?" Lila shook her head, slipping into her chair. I thought about it every day, at first impatiently, like I needed to know right away. But that gave way to playfulness. Like not knowing became part of the magic. "Exactly, my dear," her grandmother beamed. She slid an ivory card across the table. Lila turned it over. Serendipity. The universe creates perfectly timed moments. A crossing of paths, a book opening to the very words you need. Serendipity isn't chance, but the unseen weaving itself into form, saying, "I see you." Lila let the words settle inside her. She thought of the way her senses had been fully alive this past weekend. The buttery flakiness of the croissant, the rich aroma of the coffee swirling in the air, the way the poetry in the cafe wrapped around her like a familiar melody, the warmth of sunlight on her skin, the chill of old book pages beneath her fingertips, the sound of brush strokes on canvas, the hush of a hidden courtyard, the hum of a violin in the distance. She exhaled, looking at her grandmother. It wasn't just where the envelope led me. It was how the day made me feel. Everything was heightened, like the world was speaking to me through color, scent, sound. Her grandmother's eyes softened, pleased. "Ah, you're beginning to understand. The body is a translator of beauty, art, poetry, music, movement. They do not simply entertain us. They remind us of what is already within. Music changes the rhythm of your heart. Poetry stirs emotions you cannot name. Painting unlocks something you didn't know you carried. Your body is nurtured by experiencing this type of beauty. Always look for what delights you, and life will place more of it in your path." Lila felt something spark inside her, like a door she hadn't noticed before had just opened. So serendipity isn't just about things happening by chance. It's also about where I place my attention. Serendipity is the dance between you and the universe, her grandmother smiled. The more you notice wonder, the more wonder finds you. The more you welcome joy, the more joy makes its way to you. You are not just stumbling into beautiful moments. You are inviting them. Grandmother continued. The question is not whether the universe is speaking. The question is, are you listening? And if you truly are, then you already know it was never random. It was always meant for you. And the final secret? It was never just the universe placing moments in your path. You were calling them all along. Your wonder, your longing, your desires. Each one sent out a ripple, a golden thread weaving its way through time, unseen but unfailing, until it found its way back to you. You were not just receiving serendipity, you were creating it. Lila let the words sink in. I want to notice more. I want to see the little moments I've been walking past. Her grandmother lifted her teacup. You have already begun. Lila smiled, feeling a new kind of excitement bubbling inside her. She had spent so much of her life looking for the big answers, the big moments. But what if the most magical things had been right in front of her all along, waiting for her to simply see them? She glanced down at the word in front of her, serendipity, and for the first time, she truly understood what it meant.